If you were on the internet in the early to mid 2010s, then you might remember bronies, the adult fanbase of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. It almost seems arbitrary to bring them up, as you have definitely heard of them one way or another. And if you did hear about them, it was probably because of the horror stories. Yeah, there was a part of the fandom that was well known for being gory, vulgar, and also, well, that. Of course, this was just a minority that doesn't fully reflect the fandom, but that didn't stop people from putting these stories front and center. There's the story of Mr. Davy, whose animations traumatized fans young and old. There's the story of the guy who married a Twilight Sparkle plushie, and then there's the story about the jar. I'm not going to go into detail about that, either you know it or you don't. Sadly, these stories are true, and they've been notorious in the brony community ever since. But there's one story that I remember reading back in the day, one that comes up every now and then, even a decade later, and the story goes like this. Hasbro had to tell their fans of My Little Pony to not make NSFW artwork of a character because that character was based off and created by a terminally ill child from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I've seen variations of this story over the years, and it's been mentioned in cringe subreddits, in iceberg breakdowns, and whenever it's brought up, a lot of people are quick to say that it was true. But is this story actually true?
Oh, stand filled with Discord-shaped lamps? Seriously? They really do have everything at the Trader's Exchange. Will you trade a lamp for my horseshoe so I can trade it for an Orthros and get my book?
No.
This is Stellar Eclipse. He's a side character from the Season 4 episode Tradia, and is supposedly the character that this story is based around. Just to get it out of the way, yes, Stellar Eclipse is an original character based off and created by a fan whose real name is Sylvain, a resident of Canada and a huge fan of MLP. But was Sylvain a terminally ill child from the Make-A-Wish Foundation? Sort of? Let's break it down. First off, let's look at the Make-A-Wish Foundation, as you see it mentioned in every article and every post about this story. However, this is actually one of the biggest parts of the story that everybody gets wrong. So, the Make-A-Wish Foundation, what is that? It's a non-profit organization that helps provide wishes to children with terminal illnesses or disorders. These wishes can range from simple things like getting to fly an airplane, seeing movies early, meeting celebrities, to things that are more extravagant, like going to space camp, being Batman for a day, or getting your own Yu-Gi-Oh card based on you. They're a pretty well-respected organization, and they've helped a lot of families and ill children over the years. But in order to be part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the child has to have a serious illness or a serious disorder. So, what kind of illness or disorder did Sylvain/Stellar Eclipse have? Well, according to articles written about Sylvain, it is revealed that he has a neuromuscular disorder known as spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA for short. Not gonna lie, this part is gonna be a bit boring, but it's important, just stick with me here. SMA is a disorder that can affect the person's central nervous system, their peripheral nervous system, and their voluntary muscle movement. SMA can also be classified as one of 5 types: Type 0, Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, and Type 4. According to the articles about Sylvain, it is revealed that he was diagnosed with the Type 3 variant of SMA. Now, here's the thing about SMA Type 3. It's not deadly. In fact, it's actually the mildest form of childhood onset SMA, and the child's lifespan is unaffected by this disorder, which means that if he lives with good health, he could live until his senior years. Although children's lifespans are unaffected by SMA Type 3, some children may lose their ability to walk and will have to rely on wheelchairs in order to get around. The same thing happened to Sylvain in his later childhood years, and this is the reason why his OC is in a wheelchair. Not only is SMA Type 3 not deadly, but children who have this disorder are not eligible for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Types 1 and 2 are, but types 3 and 4 are not. So if he couldn't get into the Make-A-Wish Foundation, then how did he get his character onto the show? Well, it might not have been through Make-A-Wish, maybe he got it through a different organization. There are a lot of nonprofits out there that are similar to Make-A-Wish all over the world, and some are a bit more lenient when it comes to eligibility. But which one did Sylvain and his family use? As I briefly mentioned earlier, Sylvain was a resident of Canada. Are there any wish-making nonprofits in Canada? Yes. There is one known as the Children's Wish Foundation, and unlike Make-A-Wish, children with SMA Type 3 are eligible for this program. So it's likely that he got his character into the show from them, and an article written about Sylvain in his later years would go on to confirm this. To reiterate, he was not a terminally ill child from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, he was an ill child from the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. That's a big part of the story that everyone gets wrong. What else do people get wrong about this story? Let's dig deeper. Next point. How old was Sylvain when all this happened? There are a lot of conflicting rumors about how old he was when the controversy began. Some say he was 15, some say he was 10, and some say he was as young as 5. How old was he really? We can actually get an idea as to how old he was because not only did Sylvain get his OC into the show, but Sylvain also got to voice his own OC in the show.
Sorry, girls. Been trading all day. My belly's telling me it's time to eat a nut burger.
That doesn't sound like a child. So how old was he when all this happened? While doing research for this video, I found Stellar Eclipse's DeviantArt account, and on it he states his birthday as July 9th, 1996. Of course, this could just be a kid lying about his age on the internet, which is something that we all did. Don't lie, we all did that when we were younger. You lied about your age when you were a kid on the internet. I lied about my age when I was a kid on the internet. We all lied about our age when we were kids on the internet. We need better evidence to confirm his age, and that can be found in another article. In Canada, they have a charity event known as the Rebecca Run. It's a charity 5K used to spread awareness about SMA and raise donations for finding a cure. Sylvain has participated in some of these events and has brought attention to this run in the past. In fact, in 2009, the Rebecca Run made him an honoree, and they would go on to write an article about his life, family, and the struggles that he overcame while growing up with SMA. And that article would go on to confirm that his birthday was indeed July 9th, 1996. Now, the My Little Pony episode Trade Ya, where his OC made his debut, was aired on April 19th, 2014. That means that Sylvain was 17 years old. Now, he could have been younger when he did the voiceover for his character. Voiceover is usually done months, if not a year or two in advance. But that doesn't really matter because the controversy about his character didn't start until after the episode aired in April 2014. To reiterate, he was not a child like the story would make you believe. He was actually 17 years old. So he wasn't a kid, but he also wasn't an adult either. Next point. Hasbro had to tell bronies to not make NSFW content of Stellar Eclipse. There have been a lot of staff members who worked on My Little Pony who've interacted with the fandom over the years, answering questions, giving insight into episodes, talking about the fandom, and some interactions were even a little risque. And Hasbro certainly knows that bronies exist and the impact that they have had, but there is no evidence of this claim. No one from Hasbro and no one from the My Little Pony team ever came out and told the fandom to not make this type of content. So this part is completely fake and made up, right? Right? Not exactly. While there's no evidence of anyone from Hasbro or the MLP team saying this, there is, however, evidence of Sylvain's mother saying this. Shortly after his debut, Sylvain's mother would send out a message stating, quote, I read your post about my son's pony Stellar Eclipse. I was wondering if you could pass this message along. Sylvan is 17 years old, suffers from spinal muscular atrophy, and is a minor. Please remember that this is his pony, this was his beauty mark, this was his voice, this was his wish granted from Make-A-Wish and DHX. He does not want his character defamed or degraded in any way, shape, or form. Please be kind and see this pony for who he is, someone just like you and me." End quote. There's a few things to take away from this message. First of all, beauty mark? Beauty mark? It's called a cutie mark. Are you serious?
Jesus fucking Christ, woman!
Second, for some reason she says Make-A-Wish, even though it couldn't have been done by them due to what was mentioned earlier. Why did she say this? I don't know. Maybe it was easier to say Make-A-Wish than the Children's Wish Foundation because it's more well known and requires less explanation? I'm not sure why she would say this. And finally, she mentions reading a post about Sylvan's pony. What post is she talking about? In fact, how did she even find out that this was happening? Well, I started doing some more research into this to see if I could find this supposed post, and maybe from there we can find the origin of this whole story. After doing some research, I managed to narrow down the origin to one of two places. The first place came from Derpy Buro, one of the biggest websites for MLP artwork. Someone had posted the screenshot of the message from Sylvan's mother, and with it a link to an old Tumblr post. Unfortunately, this post doesn't exist anymore, and there are no archives of it. While there are no archives of the post, there are archives of the place where it came from. It was posted by a group known as Ponies Against Bronies, an anti-brony group that discusses their disdain about the fandom. Unfortunately, their earliest archive was in late April 2014, a week after the Stellar Eclipse controversy began. But I do think it's interesting how all of this could have started from an anti-brony group who talks about their controversies big and small. The second place for the origin came from FimFiction, one of the biggest websites for MLP fanfiction. There was a user on there by the name of Equestrium, who wrote a blog entitled "Ground We Must Not Touch," and in it there is the message from Sylvan's mother again, and Equestrium discusses another blog that he made about writing explicit fics about Stellar Eclipse. Just like the Tumblr post from earlier, this blog doesn't exist anymore. It was deleted shortly after it was made, and there are no archives of it. So, it seems that Equestrium made a blog post about writing explicit fics with Stellar Eclipse. This got the attention of anti-bronies on Tumblr, which then got the attention of Sylvan's mother, who then told everyone to not make the artwork of her son. But that's just my theory. We're missing some key points here. We don't know for sure some of the details about the origin. We don't know what was said in the Tumblr post about Stellar Eclipse. We don't know which one of these posts came first, and we don't know which post Sylvan's mother is referring to specifically. While we might not have the origin, we do have the outcome, and it comes straight from Equestrium. In the aforementioned Ground We Must Not Touch, Equestrium talks about his recent blog, The Message from Sylvan's Mother, and for most of the blog, he speaks with great regret about what he did to Stellar Eclipse, and even tells the brony community to not make explicit artwork of him. He would state, quote, "Normally I would wave my rights around, saying my rights don't end where your feelings begin. However, I'm not a heartless who only thinks for himself. Sylvan is my age and suffers from spinal muscular atrophy. I cannot defile someone's wishes. This fellow brony just wanted his wish to be on the show, and he got it. What kind of a hole would I be for doing such a thing as writing explicit material about a fellow brony who only wanted his wish, and now wishes for his OC to be left alone? I think the title Heartless is an understatement. I may be a clopper, but I'm not the..." That's so funny to say. "I may be a clopper, but I'm not going to be some heartless load of So here's what I ask for you guys to pass along to Clopfix and every other clopping group. Don't write anything with Stellar Eclipse. He just wanted his wish. And if you're gonna write some sexual or gory fic with Stellar in it, well, I think you need to get the out. How would you like it if you got a position on the show because you made a wish, and then some of your pseudo-family, us bronies, decides to make sure your OC is an art that makes you disgusted or is disrespectful? I don't believe it would be a laughing matter. I don't believe it would be fun for you. If you want to write anything with Stellar, I suggest it be safe for work or romantic. if we find out Sylvan may be okay with such stuff. It's not funny being an actor, so don't be one. Don't draw or write with his OC if you plan on making it explicit. End quote. After reading all this, I think it's safe to say that he was the one who started the controversy with Stellar Eclipse. Allegedly, of course. He would go on to apologize to Sylvan and ask for his forgiveness in return. This blog post would garner a lot of attention and would be shared across the internet on other brony websites. All of them spreading the information about Stellar Eclipse and all of them telling each other to not make explicit artwork of him. To reiterate, it was not Hasbro who told bronies to not make NSFW content of Stellar Eclipse. It was actually Sylvan's mother and other bronies who told everyone to not make NSFW content of him. Okay, so now we gotta talk about the fun stuff. The stuff that's going to mess up my search history, scar my FBI agent, and probably get this video demonetized. But part of the story is that bronies didn't listen to the pleas, and that they went out of their way to make this kind of content. So that begs the question. How much pornographic artwork is there of Stellar Eclipse? I chose to go down this rabbit hole. Time to see how deep it goes. So to look for more images of Stellar Eclipse, I went back to Derpy Burrow. As of the recording of this video, there are 206 results for Stellar Eclipse, which I think is rookie numbers considering that my goddess has over. Out of those 206 images, 57 of them are explicit. So just over a quarter of the images involving Stellar Eclipse are NSFW. But here's something really interesting. Out of those 57 images, almost half of them were commissions. And the person who commissioned these explicit works of art was none other than Stellar Eclipse himself. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, some of these images were commissioned by the horse himself. Like this one that reads, "A picture I had done for a friend of mine." This one that says, "Commission for Stellar Eclipse." And this one that literally states, "I actually got permission from the Stellar Eclipse himself," and many, many more. But something else that's interesting from looking through all this artwork is that in a lot of them, Stellar Eclipse is usually paired with this character. Now, this is not a character from the show, this is someone's OC. An OC named Nightlark, created by a person named Halcyon Noctem. And the people behind these two characters would confirm that they are, or at least were, in a relationship together. For example, this post on Stellar Eclipse's DeviantArt account that wishes his girlfriend a happy birthday with a drawing of her OC, and messages from Halcyon herself stating that she, as well as Stellar Eclipse, both commission artwork like this, and they both enjoy it. So now there is evidence that some of the explicit artwork was either commissioned by Stellar Eclipse himself or a close friend of his. However, it is worth mentioning that most of these commissions were made months after the controversy began and after Stellar Eclipse's 18th birthday. There is explicit artwork of Stellar Eclipse before Sylvan was 18. But these images don't really matter, because when it came to making NSFW content of his character, Stellar Eclipse was perfectly okay with it. Dun, dun, dun! Shortly after the controversy began, Stellar Eclipse would come forward to announce that he was fine with people making NSFW artwork of his character. His mother would later go onto her Twitter account and retract her statement from earlier, stating that she acted without consulting Sylvan, and that he respects all forms of artwork. And a later comment from Halcyon would confirm that Sylvan's mother was defending him without knowing that he didn't care. Others in this story would go on to retract their statements as well. Remember Equestrium's blog post, Ground We Must Not Touch, from earlier? Shortly afterward, he would make another blog post entitled Ground We Can Touch, where he goes through the retracted message from Sylvan's mother, how he was fed misinformation that he took as fact, and that he got into contact with Sylvan himself. Sylvan would go on to say, quote, "As an artist, I respect and appreciate all forms of art and regardless of my personal feelings towards its content. I do not believe that artists should be censored or restricted in their creative work. I think it would be nice to see some more family-friendly art of my character that everyone can enjoy. However, I am perfectly fine with seeing any form. So you, clop artists, need not feel oppressed. I would also like to express how honored I am that other artists would take the time to draw my character. I must say that from what I have seen so far, that there are some really nice and fantastic pieces of work out there, and would like to also thank everyone for this lovely art." End quote. Equestrium would apologize for causing all of this to happen, and just like before, this blog post would gain a lot of traction and be shared across the internet. But even if Sylvan was cool with this kind of artwork being made, bronies still made a bunch of it to be a problem, right? About that, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that all of this, the episode, the messages, the blog post, the retractions, this infamous Twitter post, all of this happened within 4 days. The episode Tradia debuting Stellar Eclipse aired on April 19th. Equestrium's deleted blog post about writing explicit fics, the Tumblr post, and the message from Sylvan's mother happened on either April 20th or the 21st. Equestrium's blog, Ground We Must Not Touch, the post that allegedly started this controversy and told bronies to not make NSFW content, written on April 21st. Sylvan's mother retracting her statement, Equestrium writing Ground We Can Touch, stating that Sylvan was fine with the artwork, written on April 22nd. And finally, this infamous tweet that everyone uses as evidence towards the controversy, written on April 23rd. With this being the case, you would expect most of this artwork being made within this time period. So I went back onto Derpy Burrow, checked out the images again, and discovered that out of the 57 explicit images, only 3 of them were made within this 4-day period. But of course, Derpy Burrow is not the only website that hosts this kind of content. Other websites like Fur Affinity, E621, and Rule 34 share this kind of artwork as well. And artwork of Stellar Eclipse is on those websites. But none of these images were made within this 4-day period. In fact, most, if not all of these explicit images were made after Sylvan said that he was fine with NSFW content. I checked! Believe me, I checked. Unless you want to consider 3 images constituting as going out of your way, then this part of the story is completely blown out of proportion and wrong. In fact, almost everything in this story is wrong. And to reiterate, for the final time, he was not a terminally ill child from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He was a 17-year-old with his 18th birthday just a few months away, and was an ill child from the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. Hasbro, nor did the Children's Wish Foundation or DHX tell bronies to not make NSFW content of his character. It was actually his mother and fellow bronies who told everyone to not make this type of content, both of whom would retract their statement shortly after it was revealed that Sylvan, the person this controversy is based around, was perfectly okay with people making NSFW images of him, and the amount of NSFW images that were made during this time period barely constitutes as going out of their way. The whole thing can be disproven. In fact, it was disproven numerous times over a decade ago. There have been posts on Tumblr disproving it, forum posts disproving it, Reddit posts disproving it, and even Stellar Eclipse, the horse himself, has been disproving it for over a decade. However, despite this information being available from the beginning, it's always absent from the stories mentioning Stellar Eclipse. Did the people who spread the story around not do enough research to prove that it was wrong? Or did they deliberately leave this information out in order to start a controversy? We may never know. But what we do know is that it keeps getting spread around even after all this time. Why is that? I think there's a few reasons. One, from doing research, it's clear that most people know the story, but they don't know the resolution. Unless you were within the more niche parts of the brony community back then, you didn't really hear about the ending to the story or know the full details behind it. The ending never gained the amount of traction outside the fandom as this one tweet did. And the reason for that is, well, this whole story is one that makes bronies look bad. Bronies are an easy target to make fun of on the internet. It's a statement that's true today as it was back then. And the people who spread this story around are not the ones who would go out of their way to fact check it. Doing so would show that the person involved was okay with it, that the whole thing didn't matter, and required looking at a lot of clop. Seriously, do you know how much clop I had to look at in order to make this video? I have seen things that you people wouldn't believe. But even if it didn't matter in the end, then what's the point of talking about it? Well, because even if it doesn't matter, it's still important to know the details that were wrong, the details that were half true, and the details that were blown out of proportion. Overall, this story is just sad. It should have been a heartwarming story about a disabled kid who got his dream fulfilled of having his own character put into a show that he loved. But instead, it's now a story filled with controversy and lies that could have been disproven if you dug deeper. And what about Sylvain, the person behind Stellar Eclipse? Well, he's actually still around. You can find him on Twitter where he posts some of his artwork, and he has a Twitch account where you can see him play games from time to time.
Let's hear them speak, please. I'm obeying the rules of the road. Don't worry, I'm a good cab driver. I'm fucking great at cab driving.
But sadly, the only thing people know him for is this controversy. Maybe one day he will be remembered for something else, and maybe one day this false controversy of the brony community can be moved on from. And if somebody does bring it up, then you too can give them a 25-minute explanation about how wrong they are. Always do your research. And always check the facts before coming to conclusions, because you can't believe everything you read on the internet.
I've always been fascinated with art, animation, and voice acting. The fact that My Little Pony Friendship is Magic just meant so much to me. It's really what sparked my step forward into finally being a self-taught artist and doing everything, like trying to learn how to draw. It was one of the first things that really hit me deep in the heart, and it still holds such a deep place in my heart to this day. I'm so thankful for that show being a thing. The people I've met and even having the opportunity to be on said show it just means so much to me.